And joining us again is Adam. Adam, thank you so much for being here. Interesting look, to bringing back a Continental. We were talking earlier, just a second ago, Lincoln's saying quiet luxury,
Yes.
right? That's what they're going for. How do you feel about this? What are we looking at?
Well, I think what they're trying to go is sort of a quiet confidence, right? So quiet luxury could mean the isolation you feel inside the cockpit of the car, and they spoke to that a little bit. But I think overall what they're talking about is more of an attitude shift, right? Whereas maybe for some luxury buyers, it's about being showy, right? And that's fine. That's what some are looking for. Lincoln is saying we're targeting a customer that has that quiet confidence, that wants the quiet luxury experience. So that's their terminology for it, but I think it kind of shows through the design of the vehicle. It's not trying to do anything groundbreaking, more of a classic look. And even the way they unveiled it. I mean, wouldn't you say, Jesse, the jazz band? And
it was so lovely. It was very peaceful. Her voice was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was very, very classy. You know, the ladies that were standing around, I mean, it had all the vintage look and these beautiful blue gowns. It was a really nice press conference. And even in the press conference, they mentioned that, you know, you have a quiet luxury, but then you can have that confidence of the 400 horsepower and the 400 foot-pounds of torque. So it's not lacking in power by any means.
Sure, but we're looking at an interior, something that's designed maybe more for an executive, somebody who's being
Absolutely.
driven around.
Yeah, they said it's inspired by sort of like a luxury airliner experience.
Okay.
So they talk about the rear legroom. Whenever they talk about that, you know that either we're talking about driving a family around, or in this case, an executive around in the back seat. So maybe you're not even the one driving the car. But they did kind of walk through the experience. Instead of like the blaring music and the quick cut video, they just sort of quietly, as the president of Lincoln, Kumar Galhotra, came up and spoke to what it's like approaching the vehicle. There's they call it the E-latch, just sort of an interesting experience in the belt line of the car instead of the traditional place where you'd find the door handle. It's just all these subtle ways that they're trying to create. Jesse, I think you called it like a spa-like experience.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the seats massage, they're obviously heated and cooled, but like, what car have you been in where it gives you a massage? You know, it's like, it's definitely kind of like you're just stepping into a cloud. You get to tune out the rest of the world, and you get to have your peaceful moments. You can have your meetings. You can have whatever inside the cockpit of this car, and nothing else is distracting you.
And the seats are adjustable apparently in 30 different ways, or 30 configurations.
What 30 are there?
Each leg has its own bolster. You know what I mean? So it's like, so every component can probably move independently.
And who are they going after with it? I mean, are they looking at the American market? Are they focusing on China? Are they?
Yeah, well, actually, they did bring up China. Mark Fields came up first, the Ford CEO, spoke to the fact that their growth in China is outpacing their internal projections. So they said that they were hoping to do about 25 dealerships this year and ended up with 33. They're going to have 60 by the end of 2016. So definitely I think we're seeing a battle for the Chinese luxury market. The sort of common talking point has been how well Buick has done in China, and that sort of revived the brand. And one of the reasons that General Motors kept Buick around when they were kind of downsizing and having to look at their portfolio. And now they're really going after China with Cadillac as well. And Lincoln is saying, hey, we can play in this market as well. I was surprised, though, because with Cadillac's new flagship, they announced a plug-in version for the Chinese market that will eventually make its way to the U.S. And no mention of that, but there is the 400 horsepower 3-liter V6 twin turbo, so plenty of power there. But I think it's not really going to be about the sort of raw thrill of driving and using that power. It's going to be as isolated from the road as possible.
Does it seem like they're kind of saying, you know what, the American market, as far as luxury cars go, yes, we want to be in there, but you know, when we honestly talk about them, we don't usually mention Lincoln.
Sure.
We don't usually mention the big three here when it comes to luxury cars. You think they're kind of going, let's take what we can here, but let's really focus on outside.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not seeding the market by any means. However, they are, I think, seeing China as an area for growth potential to establish the brand in a different way with a different set of consumers, and then will work and continue to chip away at the American market. I mean, you've got big three players of BMW and Lexus here and Mercedes-Benz in the U.S. market. and their growth has been phenomenal. Lincoln did say, I think it was their second consecutive year of sales growth, but I would imagine it's modest by comparison.
Sure.
So they're hoping that things like this flagship car can bring people back into Lincoln dealerships. I think it will. I think people remember the name Continental, and it stands for something. They're building it here in Michigan, so there'll be a source of pride there as well. But definitely the amount that they talked about the Chinese market, and even in their press releases, they talk about the Chinese, going after that customer. Shows that's where they're thinking.
Especially when their growth in 1 year supersedes other brands in the 5 years that they've introduced their brands to the market in China.
Yeah, they were able to ramp up very quickly in China. And so you could say that's a result of that the market had already sort of been established and they were able to jump in. But I don't think it's too late for them or anything, although more recently we've had a little bit of a downturn in the economy there. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects your strategy overall. But I think it's a car that could play well in that market where a lot of people are going to have a driver, with all the traffic. It'll be interesting to see, too, how autonomous cars could sort of change that market. They didn't talk too much about autonomous features on the Continental, but, of course, the full suite of driver assist technologies that you would expect, and some autonomous parking, I think.
And the autonomy would be your driver, so that
yes.
you don't need that.
Right.
What do you think about the styling? I mean, are we looking at something that's going to be turning heads on the road? Are we looking? The grille's interesting to see that. It kind of, I hate to say, but it's starting to kind of look like some other cars that are out there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think they would point back to that quiet luxury, the quiet confidence that it's not a showy design.
They don't want to be. Yeah.
I would say there are some classic elements, and then a few things put in there, like the E-latch in the belt line that we talked about, the panoramic roof. I think the grille is bold, whether or not it's entirely unique. They brought in all of the LED lighting. I mean, it sort of reaffirms and reestablishes a new design language for Lincoln. And I sort of view this as a fresh start for Lincoln by going back to some of their history and their past and saying, hey, we're an established luxury brand that has a story to tell that maybe hasn't been told in a while. And Jesse and I were talking about it's hard to keep track of all the alphanumeric names, and this replaces the MKS.
It's nice to see a name. It's
yeah,
nice to see
I agree.
Like
Continental,
that.
and it's a recognized name. It's a household name. It's a
not
name
that
my grandparents trust.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. What do you think? I want to talk just briefly about this because I feel like, for as far as the show goes, it sounds like the Ford Motor Company has done a good job at putting on a show. Literally, I mean, for the Detroit Auto Show, the way you describe this, I didn't have a chance to be there, so it wasn't. I didn't experience it myself, but it sounds like they created a wonderful experience that fit with the vehicle itself.
Absolutely.
Yesterday, they had a good show with some interesting things to talk about, and a lot of times we're seeing that people coming out, they're kind of going, "Here's our thing, that's it." Are we moving away from the glitz and glamour? When it comes to Detroit?
I think that's what Ford is trying to do. I don't think everyone's going to follow that path, but I think they did a nice job of it, especially with the Lincoln press conference. It was succinct. They only had 2 people up on the stage. They showed off the car. They kind of really calmly went through all of the features, I felt. And they had these jazz numbers up front. They played 2 of them. I don't think they were just waiting for it to fill out. I think they wanted to get people in sort of a state of mind. And at first it felt like just kind of different than what you would expect, but then I found myself kind of getting a little bit lost in the presentation, and I thought they did a nice job with it.
I thought they did a nice job, and I think what these brands are doing is that they're realizing that what they have is a lifestyle, because they're really trying to tune their drivers into their cars. Just like we were talking with Ralph earlier, it's one of those things that it's not just a car. It's an extension of who we are, and therefore it should be who we are, and therefore that's the music. They talked a lot about the music and the speakers and the sound system that they have inside of the Continental, and it goes right hand in hand with the music that they opened up with. Like, I could totally see the driver of that car blaring some nice jazz.
Yeah. Very cool. I like that. A nice experience overall.
It really is, yeah. It was lovely.
Good.